Hello everyone. What is in front of you today are several vintage GE box fans. I've arranged them in order of model number. So starting over there are the W12s, W13, W16, W22, and W25. Obviously my lineup is incomplete, but this is what I have. And not all these fans are in the best of condition. I'm still working on getting all of them fixed up. Obviously this has been an ongoing project. But the newest addition here is that W22 right there. So we'll start from the left side with the first gen W12 and second gen W12. So these two fans, I bought these both quite a long time ago, probably about 10 years ago now. And the one on the left, I bought kind of as it is right now. The majority of the blade grommets were coming loose, and so I had to do something about that. I had to find something that would fit into place there. It still rattles because I haven't found the perfect solution for it yet. That one's in pretty decent shape. If you look on the left side of the fan, you can see somebody sharpied their name into it. I could probably use some isopropyl alcohol or something to get that off, but as for right now, it's running just fine as it is. So you can see one of the distinct features of the first gens were the speed plate. You can see the second gen over here does not have that. It just has the printed dial with the letters on there and the little button. Something you'll notice the later models do not have. So we'll start off with this guy. We'll start it up on low. As you can hear, it rattles a little bit. And surprisingly enough, this one still has its center cap. A lot of these lost their center caps. They would fall off. This fan runs pretty well, just has that annoying rattle to it. I'll kick it on up to medium. Silences the rattle a little bit. Very smooth runner, this one. Unfortunately, the model plate, or the model sticker is missing on the bottom of this one, which is a shame. Shut it off. You can see the spit now. The one on the right side next to it is definitely in rougher shape. This one I could definitely bear to give a full restoration. But that's not a project for today, unfortunately. Will definitely happen though one of these days. So now we'll pan on over to the F15 W12 second gen. This one, unfortunately, needs some oil. I've tried to get that blade off so I can get some oil to this fan, but it's really hard to get off. I will get to oiling it. This fan also has quite the balance issue. Once the blades stop, they sometimes rotate backwards, so this one definitely could use some TLC. I just don't run it that much as it is right now, so I'm not too worried about it. So now we'll go ahead and fire it up on low, and you'll see it starts very slow. Oh, I guess now it's working okay. I made sure to give this one some time running on high before I started the video so it would start up okay for you. These were pretty common, not too hard to find. Now we'll bring it up to medium. Working real great now, fortunately enough. I do believe this was my second GE box fan. Now we'll put it on high. Like I said, this one needs some love. Actually just the grills, not motor noise. And now we'll turn it off. Surprisingly good spin down from that one today. Now we'll move from the W12 over to the W13. So this one is a 3-speed electrically reversible. As you can see on the center badge. Whoops, too far. This one I've had for a while too. I believe I purchased this one on eBay. I also have this one's original box somewhere. Actually, I know exactly where it is. It's in the garage. But now, I'll fire it up on low in intake. I'm actually going to move the camera now. This one also has a bit of a cage rattle. This one gets right up to speed. This one is a good runner. Not too off balance either on this one. fans are notorious for being out of balance, and I can confirm that. A lot of my GE box fans are out of balance. Medium. And now high. So now off. Flip it. This one has a slight rub to it. This one could bear to be lubricated a little bit. Now I'll fire it up on low and reverse. Startup definitely has a bit of a different tone to it on reverse. You can hear blowing a plastic bag in the background. I'm behind the fan and I can still feel the air. I'm in front of the fan and I can still feel the air coming out the back over here. Now medium. Now high. Off. Now we'll move on over to the W16. Now, the W16 is a pretty uncommon GE box fan. This fan was marketed as the Slimline. Now, one of the interesting things about this fan was that it was actually a promotional fan. So this fan did not appear in any of GE's regular catalogs for their fans, like the rest of these ones did. This fan is only available in stores, if I remember correctly, and that was the only place that you could find out about them. So there's a few main differences between the other 3-blade GE box fans and this one. So this one is actually only a 2-speed. And there's also a turnstile switch, much like the ones found on the later all-purpose models. Not the F11s or the F12s. They were on the F15s. They were the turnstile switch. Now this one, I'm probably not going to run it for too long because it's a bit out of balance, but I will get to that in a minute. Another difference on this fan is the smaller size. It's obviously a lot smaller than even the W13 next to it. And I believe it's even smaller than a W25. So I will turn them sideways and you can have a look here just how much smaller the fan is. Let's see here. Let's scoot this one back a bit for you. And then we'll pull this one up a little bit next to it. You can see there is a very clear size difference between these two. Much smaller. If I turn the fan around, that is what the back of it looks like. And one thing you'll notice about this one is that there are no screws or rubber bushings to mount the grill. It is welded to the fan. So you cannot take off the back grill of this fan, because the back grill also supports the motor and the fan blade. Another thing you may notice if you look very closely is that the blades come very, very close to the wire. Now, the reason I believe that that is the case on this fan is because I have reasons to suspect that this fan's blade has been replaced. Now, the reason I suspect that is because originally the W16 came with a creased blade. The blades were put into a brake and creased. This was to allow the fan to move just as much air as a non-creased GE box fan blade, but also take up less space. The only real sacrifice of that would be that the fan would only really work well in one direction, but that doesn't really matter because this isn't a reversible fan. And that's another reason that I believe the blades come so close to the wires. The blades clear the wires on this fan by less than an inch. But nonetheless, I'm still going to run the fan. Another thing that's different about this one is the cord placement. You can see it comes out above the bottom on this one instead of at the bottom. It comes out about 1.5 inches higher than a typical GE box fan. And so now we'll finally fire this thing up for you. So it starts off on low, just as any GE box fan does. And it still has the signature GE box fan sound. And as you can see, it is vibrating the entire table. This one is very off balance. I've tried to get it back into whack, but this one is harder to balance, which for that reason I'm probably only going to run it on low today. Now with these fans, you have to be very, very careful because any slight vibration during operation could cause the blades to come in contact with the wires. And so I will not be moving this fan even an inch during operation. Now supposedly, there was also a version of this fan that had a 3-wing plastic blade, but I unfortunately have not seen any pictures or video of such a fan. As you can see, since this fan has been oiled by me, it is quite a good runner. Other than the vibration, this fan runs very quietly. The only thing about this fan that really upsets me is that it has a W12 blade instead of a W16 blade. Unless there were minor discrepancies over all the time that this fan was produced, which was, I believe, about 2 or 3 years. These were a very limited run fan. There are not many of these out there. I've seen just a few other videos of these. Another big difference between this and any of my other GE box fans is there's no Venturis. There are no Venturis on this fan. The only other GE box fan, if I remember correctly, that didn't have Venturis was the W27, and that was the last GE box fan that was made until GE sold their fan rights off in the US market and stopped producing fans for the US domestic market. Now I'll go ahead and shut this thing down because I don't want to run it on high. Now you can hear the blade contacting the wire in the back. I probably need to move it a little bit forward on the shaft. The blades kind of crease out when the fan runs, for whatever reason. None of my other GE box fans do that. And I could hear it pop back into shape. But regardless, this is definitely my most interesting GE box fan. Now one day, I would love to have a GE VentoGlide window ventilator filter fan, but unfortunately, those are even more uncommon than the W16. So they are very, very hard to get a hold of. And now, we'll move over to my 5-element box fans. This is my W22 and my W25. Now, if you're wondering, where is the W23 and where is the W24 and where's the W26? The answer to that is the W23 is the electrically reversible version of the W22, and those were all center badge fans, and so they did not have the top left corner badge like the one on the left does. And the W26 is the electrically reversible version of the W25, which notably had the ring on the front grille, which no other GE box fans had. And then the W24, if I remember correctly, is a window fan. So that's not going to be here. Anyways, without further ado, let's talk about this W22. So this W22 is my most recent addition to my GE fan collection. I bought this one at a thrift store for $15 in barely working condition. It would run, but the bearings were very stiff and it buzzed very loudly. And it was also a bit dirty, but it actually cleaned up really nicely. I'm very, very happy with how this fan turned out. And so I'll bring the camera a little bit closer to it here. So this one is an earlier model, and you can tell that by the fact that the fan has the top left corner badge position. That was a sign of the earlier models. Now, some of the very first W22s had the same motor as the W15 or the W12s. They had the straight, the kind of pointed edges on the rotor fins, the cooling fins, instead of the rounded ones that appeared on the later ones, like this one. Excuse me. And the blade mounting mechanism was also different. There was a metal piece, I believe, that came out of the blades, which obviously is not on this fan. Those very first gen W22s are not exactly easy to come by. And so now we'll go ahead and start it up. This one still does buzz a little bit, but once it gets warmed up, it typically tends to quiet down. And so we'll go ahead and start it up on low speed. And I'll also kind of show some differences between the W25 and the W22 because there are quite a few. So we'll start it up on low. Go. There we go. Yeah, this one has a little bit of a bearing issue. I don't know what causes that. But once it gets rolling, it's really, really quiet. You'll hear it start buzzing in a second here. And again, I'm unsure why it has that weird thing with the bearing. It seems like sometimes after it's stopped for a while, it kind of locks up a little bit. Once it gets moving, it runs just fine. It's kind of like the same thing with the second gen W12 that I have. It also does that. This fan has a nice low speed, and once it gets warmed up and it quiets down, it's really nice. I've gone through this fan, I've oiled it, cleaned out the motor a bit, and I've also varnished it a little bit to help with the shading coil noise. It used to be much, much worse. It would buzz far louder. I also washed the blades on this fan and they came out very nicely. So now we'll bring it up to medium. Kind of quiets down the buzzing noise, but this fan really takes off on medium speed for whatever reason. The speed spacing on these was very different than it was in the W25. This one is definitely the better performer of the two. And now we can put it on high. Very smooth runner once it gets going. This hasn't been an issue starting. I'm sure that after I run this thing for a while, it'll stop doing that. The fan is 50 years old after all. Can't be too hard on it. And now I'll shut it down. This one actually has a pretty decent spin down time for a 5-blader. Alright. And now we'll move on to the W25. Now, this fan was my first GE box fan. This was the first one I ever had. And I acquired this one at an antique store by asking if they would trade Alaska 3733 for it. They were using it in service to ventilate the store. That deal was definitely in my favor. I'm surprised that they accepted, but I guess they just wanted something that would move the air. And as far as I know, that 3733 is still in service to this day at that antique store. At least it was when I last went there. And it even still had my name drawn on the center badge, since I had done that when I was a kid. But this one is in a bit of rough shape. If you can tell, the top of it's a little bit dirty. And it's a little bit rusty. This one could definitely be a good candidate for a restore, but like I said, that's that's a big project. I have at least 3 of these box fans need a restoration. But either way, we'll go ahead and we'll start it up on low. Now you'll notice the low speed on this one is very different than the low speed on the W22. There isn't quite as much of a startup sound on this one either. This one also is definitely smaller than the W22, and the blade, or the grill mounting is completely different. Oh, it would seem I've forgotten to put the wire holders back in place on this fan. So I will real quickly do that. Give me just a sec. Now you may notice that this fan does not have nearly as much of a startup sound to it as any of the other fans in here do. I'm unsure of why that is. Another thing that's different about this fan is that these didn't have the buzzing issue as much as the W22s did. You can obviously hear that mine has that buzzing issue. Both the top left and center badge W22s had that issue. But for whatever reason, none of the 3-bladers, at least not that I've ever seen, have the issue. Yeah, medium on this fan is like low on the 22. Here's high. This one really moves some air. It's interesting that these fans run at such different speeds, considering that they're both labeled to have a 3-amp motor. Now go ahead and shut it off. I did oil this one today. And so it's running at its best right now. And now, to show the difference between the two speeds, the low and on these both of these box fans, I'll start them both up. You can also see that the 22 takes far less time to get up to speed than the 25. And you can hear that signature buzzing noise. now we'll see if we can run them all. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the stairway light up here. Simply because I do worry about blowing the circuit breaker. So there's the 13. Now I guess we can start up the W16. Unfortunately, we won't be able to fit all of these in the frame all at once. Now I'll go ahead and start up the other fans. I'm probably not going to run them all on high. Simply because that's quite frankly ridiculous. And now you can see they are all running. And there's a lot of air moving in here, even though they're all on low speed. And now what I'm going to try and do is turn them all off as quickly as possible to see if I can figure out which one has the best spin down time. And there's the W16 making its funny noise. And it looks like the first one to stop is the 22. Oh, 22 and the first gen W12. Now it's between these four. And the second gen W12 is stopped, and so is the W22. My money's on the electrically reversible W13. That one's always been a good runner as far as bearings go. And there we go. There are all of my GE box fans. Real quick, I'll take the camera off of the tripod and knowingly unscrew everything. So we'll start over here. These two kind of look the exact same from the back. Except obviously one is in a little bit better shape. This is the back of the W13. It has these weird little nibs on the motor, which none of the other fans that I have do. And here, W22, 25. Kind of hard to see. But yeah, there you go. There are all of my GE box fans. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.